No one in the family even thought to inform me when Amber gave birth. I only heard about it later from someone outside our circle. I stayed silent, swallowing my hurt, and spent a full 24 hours outside the hospital room. In the middle of the night, I tried to see if my grandson needed a diaper change. Amber looked at me with disdain and asked if I'd washed my hands. My husband and son stood nearby, silent and indifferent, as if they hadn't seen or heard a thing. Instead, they told me to look after her. Fine. If none of them could spare me even a shred of respect, then I had nothing left to cling to. The next morning, I packed my bags and booked a trip. You're leaving right after Amber's delivery? Who's going to care for her and the baby? Have you completely lost your mind? Mom, what on earth are you thinking? Amber is still healing, and this is exactly when she needs you the most. She'll despise you forever. I faced Frank and Jason, their eyes burning into me like I'd done something unforgivable. All I felt was a hollow ache inside. I married Frank at 20 and gave birth to Jason at 21. For the past 30 years, I've run this household tirelessly, cooking, cleaning, organizing, sacrificing, yet all my efforts were dismissed, as if I were just background noise in their lives. I looked at Jason and said, apart from being the one who cooks your meals and does your laundry like a servant, have you ever once introduced me as your mother? I tried to change your baby's diaper, and Amber insisted I wear disposable gloves. Do you honestly think I'm that filthy? I've been caring for your newborn nonstop for over 20 days. Has anyone here even bothered to ask if I'm exhausted? And the moment I step away for one day, you bring in 2 full-time nannies to assist Cynthia with the baby. Cynthia's barely been here a day. And you're already worried about her getting tired. Jason avoided my eyes, his voice barely above a whisper, defensive. Mom, can you stop being so sensitive? Amber's already upset with you. Everyone knows postpartum care is the priority. I'm your only son. Aren't you afraid I might stop supporting you someday? What a joke. This was my son, the boy I'd raised with everything I had, married less than 6 months and already thinking about cutting me off. I laughed bitterly. Fine. Take care of Cynthia when she's old and leave me alone. I'll just check myself into a nursing home. Frustrated, I wouldn't relent. Jason turned to Frank, snapping, Dad, say something. Cynthia's been caring for Amber every day and she's exhausted. Frank's face darkened. Helen, what exactly do you want? Are you trying to break this family apart? Oh, please, I replied, calm but sharp. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? Tell me, who was the one who told me Amber was in labor? Who told me when you booked that $15,000 postpartum suite? I'm your wife, I'm your mother. I pointed at both of them, my voice shaking with anger. But have I ever really been seen as a person by either of you? I heard about Amber's birth from someone else, not from you. And still, I didn't complain. I even stayed up late making soup to bring her. But your wife said I was nothing but a housemaid, called me filthy, then dumped the soup I made straight into the trash. When she humiliated me like that, both of you just stood there silent as statues. Not a single word. Jason snapped, irritated. Mom, stop bringing up the past. Amber just had a baby. Her emotions are fragile. If I criticize her and it hurts her milk supply, what then? The bitterness inside me grew darker. I had only spoken honestly about my feelings. Yet to them, I was making a scene. My fists clenched tightly, so when I tried to hold the baby and she called me dirty, what was she implying exactly? Jason's agitation increased. You're in the kitchen all day, soaked in grease and smoke. It's disgusting. Honestly, even I can't stand the smell, let alone a newborn. I slammed my hand on the table. Then why is it that when you eat the meals I cook, you don't seem to mind how dirty I am? My voice cracked, a lump stuck in my throat, making it almost impossible to speak. Frank finally rose and said coldly, You're too emotional right now. This isn't the time to talk. Calm yourself down. Make more vegetable soup tonight and roast a chicken. Have it at the hospital by 6 sharp. Postpartum mothers need proper nutrition, and hospital food isn't enough. You should cook something decent. Cynthia can't go hungry either. You know she gets dizzy and nauseous if she skips meals. It's better to deliver dinner early. Then the two of them stormed out, slamming the door behind them. I sat there trembling, tears finally falling. I buried my face in my arms, sobbing loud, heart-wrenching sobs. The more I cried, the heavier the suffocating feeling grew. I sacrificed everything to marry Frank, even when my family was against it. He had nothing but empty hands and empty promises. I stood by him through every struggle, helped build his company from scratch. When he wanted a traditional wife and mother, I gave up my career and became a full-time homemaker. I dedicated my life to this family only to be treated like an afterthought. Neither of them ever truly saw me as a person. Now I'm 50, and after half a lifetime, I finally see who they really are. Selfish to the core. I sat alone in the living room for hours, lost in thought. Then at 6:05, my phone rang. "Who is this, Jason? You're 5 minutes late. Where's the dinner? What the hell are you playing at?" he growled. I answered quietly, calmly. "I'm your mother, not your maid. If your wife didn't eat, what are you doing as her husband? What about your beloved mother-in-law? What's she doing? Suddenly disabled or just too cheap to buy your wife a meal?" Jason was stunned. He'd never heard me speak that way. After a pause, he snapped out of it and shouted, "You're insane. You've lost it. I'll have Dad talk to you." But I hung up before he could finish. Then I blocked both of their numbers. I booked a flight 5 days from then. I went to the bedroom and started packing. I'd barely folded a few shirts when Frank's driver arrived. "Ma'am, there you are," he said, surprised. "Mr. Dawson's been calling nonstop and thought something was wrong. He sent me to check on you." Right there in front of me, he called Frank again and handed me the phone. I didn't want to complicate things for him, so I took it. The voice on the other end was already full of irritation. "Helen, can you please cut the dramatics? You've been at it all afternoon. Still not finished? You haven't taken a real vacation in over 20 years, and now suddenly you want one. You know Cynthia hates the smell of grease, but she adores your lemon roast chicken. Are you seriously planning to starve her on purpose?" The anger I'd kept bottled up exploded all at once. I dropped the mask and snapped back. "Frank, tell me, am I your wife or is she? If she can't stand kitchen smells, does that mean I'm supposed to slave away just for her? Do I owe her something? If you're so worried about her stomach, why don't you cook for her yourself?" "Helen, you've lost it completely. You're delusional. Go get some help." Frank slammed the phone down before I could hang up first. I hated myself for not cutting him off faster. I handed the phone back to his driver, who looked uneasy. "Ma'am, is everything all right?" I forced a smile. "I'm fine. But from now on, I'm going to need your help a lot more. And if either of those two ever call you asking where I am, just tell them this. If I drop dead today, it still wouldn't be their business." The driver stared at me, clearly taken aback. He left with a confused look on his face, glancing back at me 3 times before climbing into his car. After all, for years I'd been known as the perfect homemaker in this household, but today, I finally stopped pretending. That night, neither Jason nor Frank came home. Normally, I'd have called them dozens of times, begging them to come back. But tonight, I stayed silent. I spent the whole day soaking up the sunshine in the garden. The air was warm, and above me, stars glittered brightly. Before, I couldn't sleep without them around. But tonight, before 10 o'clock, I was already in a deep, peaceful slumber. I woke up at 5 the next morning. After freshening up, I changed into my yoga clothes and went out for a run. Some neighbors I knew from the block looked at me surprised. "You seem different today," one said. "Usually, at this hour, you're still inside making breakfast for Frank and Jason, never stepping out. I used to start the day making sure they had breakfast before they left for work, then clean the house afterward. Day after day, the same routine. People around here often said I was a workaholic. When it came to looking after the kids and Frank, I did everything myself, never trusting anyone else. Frank's business partners would often tell him that their wives should take a page from my book. Frank, on the other hand, would always scowl and say I had no other talents, that I couldn't compare to other women. He forgot that in the early days when his business was just starting, I stood by him, helping negotiate deals. But today, I was different. That morning, I ran for 40 minutes through the neighborhood, drenched in sweat. When I got home, I took a hot shower and prepared a proper breakfast for myself. I sat in the garden, enjoying the view, listening to music, savoring the quiet. Then I opened my phone and saw a new photo Cynthia had posted on social media. I nearly had a heart attack. In the pictures, Frank, who hadn't so much as boiled an egg before, was in the kitchen cooking. One showed the lavish dinner he'd made last night with fresh ingredients. Another captured him carefully brewing coffee for Cynthia that morning. I stared at the comments below the post, each one praising Frank, showering him with admiration and likes. I hesitated a moment, then typed, "Married for over 20 years, and this is the first I've heard Frank has a culinary certificate. What a shame. I've never had the privilege of tasting his cooking." Not long after, Frank stormed in through the front door, slamming it hard behind him. "Helen, what the hell are you trying to do?" I calmly set down my coffee and met his gaze. "That's a question I should be asking you." He ripped off his tie and threw it on the floor. "We've been married for 30 years. What are you jealous of? You didn't want to cook for Cynthia, so I did. Why are you making a fuss? Cynthia's crying because of you." I let out a quiet laugh. What exactly did I say that wasn't true? Suddenly, Frank flipped the table. My breakfast went flying. Eggs, toast, coffee, scattered across the floor like trash. In that moment, I realized this was exactly how Frank saw me. Disposable, unimportant, something to toss aside. I looked up at him, calm and silent. Frank seemed to realize he'd gone too far. He avoided my eyes and muttered, "Stop making a scene. Everything I do is for our son, for this family." I said nothing. My silence only made him angrier. How did the gentleman I married become this? We've been together for 3 decades, and everyone says, "You're the perfect wife, the rock of this family. So why are you falling apart just when Amber needs us most?" My quiet seemed to rattle him more than any yelling ever did. He pressed on. "Forget that trip. I'll hire 2 more nannies to help Amber and Cynthia. You just stay home and cool off. When Amber gets discharged, she's coming home. She wants your cooking, so you'll move in to care for her. Jason wrote up a list of dietary rules for postpartum care. He's sending it to your phone. Learn it by heart." As he left, Frank bent down, picked up his tie, carefully smoothed it, and folded it. Jewel blue with diagonal white stripes. His least favorite color. Yet today, he folded it like it was precious. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from Jason. "Mom, Dad probably talked to you already, right? Here's what you need to know. Amber and Cynthia have been spoiled their whole lives. They've never done housework. So when you cook, ask what they want. Amber likes light, mild flavors. Cynthia prefers spicy. Amber and the baby's clothes must be washed by hand. Cynthia's can go in the machine." Jason bombarded me with over 30 messages all at once. He remembered every tiny preference of his wife and mother-in-law, yet he never recalled my birthday. I replied, "Funny. I finally see how much you have to say to me today. Until now, you never spoke more than 3 sentences unless I asked first." Jason didn't catch the sarcasm. He just kept sending instructions. "Mom, next Tuesday is Amber's discharge day. She's been craving chicken soup. Get the ingredients ready early. And heads up, Amber's been moody since the delivery. If she says she doesn't want your food, just cook it early and leave it on the table before she sees you. If you're not around, she'll probably eat it." I let out a soft, bitter laugh. I didn't reply. I knew something Jason didn't. Tuesday was the day I was supposed to leave for my trip. Frank had told me to take some time to cool off. But oddly enough, he never reached out again. The man who once rarely made it home on time suddenly started clocking in and out like a model employee. Every evening, he showed up at Jason's house, flaunting his newfound passion for cooking, playing the perfect husband and father figure to Cynthia. Frank was terrified I might say or do something to upset his precious Cynthia again. So he and Jason quietly blocked me from seeing any of their social media posts. Instead, I watched from the sidelines, scrolling through Amber's public updates, admiring photos of their happy little family, smiling, warm, whole, a perfect picture of joy that didn't include me. Before I knew it, Tuesday arrived. As soon as I reached the airport, Frank called. "Where are you?" he demanded. "I'm at the airport," I replied simply. "Stay there," he ordered. "Jason's on his way to see you." Almost at the security checkpoint, I spotted Jason approaching, pushing my mother in a wheelchair. "Grandma," he said theatrically, "please talk some sense into Mom. Something's clearly wrong. She picked the worst possible time to take a vacation." "Jason," my mother said gently, "your grandmother's heart isn't well. Why are you tormenting her like this? I hurried through security and, without thinking, slapped Jason across the face. He looked stunned. I had raised him for 22 years and never once raised a hand to him, but I didn't regret it for a second. Mom, Jason stammered, choking on his words. My mother waved me off. Sweetheart, I know you're upset. Go wherever you want. Don't worry about us. Take the time you need to heal, and if you decide to divorce, your father and I will support you. Grandma, Jason shouted. In return, my mother slapped him on the other cheek. This one's for your mom, she said firmly. How could I have raised such an ungrateful brat like you? Hearing that, I felt every last tie holding me back snap free. With determination, I walked straight toward the departure gates. Jason's calls echoed behind me, but I didn't answer. Meanwhile, under the same roof, Frank, who hadn't spoken more than 10 words to me in over a week, sent a long message. How? You said you needed space, but is this really how you handle things? Why wasn't the house clean before Amber got home? Where's the food? How could you leave for a vacation now? Why didn't you follow the instructions Jason sent you? Was I just background noise to you? I've been busting my ass outside earning money and you can't even manage simple tasks at home. What use are you to me? And you know my mother's been struggling with her health, needing care. You've been responsible for her for 10 years. Now you suddenly quit. Where do you expect me to find someone else to take over? Clearly dissatisfied with just texting, Frank called me next, his anger unleashed. I told him, didn't you always think Cynthia would be the perfect wife? Let her take care of your mother. I've cared for you and this family for 30 years, and you've treated me like I don't exist. Now that your maid is gone, you're panicking. Let me be clear. I am not your servant. After I hung up, a calm sense of relief washed over me. I knew my journey was beginning, and I wasn't going to let these people steal my peace. There were two places I'd always dreamed of visiting: a quaint coastal town in Maine and a sprawling ranch in Montana. I'd heard the Montana plains were breathtaking just before autumn, so I booked my vacation there, eager to unwind while the weather was still warm. I hired a local private guide to show me around the ranches and small towns, giving me a taste of the Western lifestyle and local flavors. The air felt impossibly fresh, as if it had been freshly washed, and the sky stretched out endlessly, pulling open my heart. Every night I went to bed at 10 and slept soundly until 7. I had never experienced such deep, uninterrupted rest. This slow, peaceful life was exactly what I'd longed for when I was younger. For 30 years, my days had been swallowed by kitchen duties, laundry, and endless chores. Now each day, I visited one or two sites and spent the rest horseback riding or wandering the ranch. At night, I lay on the grass, staring at the stars, feeling like a child again. Meanwhile, Cynthia wasn't sitting idle. She posted again on social media, subtly throwing shade. Some people really have it made: a husband who adores them, a beautiful son, and Amber's mother-in-law jetting off on vacation right after Amber gives birth. When will I have that kind of freedom? I couldn't resist replying. Cynthia, you have a very high opinion of me. I raised my son for over 20 years, and he remembers every tiny detail about you. But never my birthday. I've been married for decades and didn't even know my husband could cook. Looks like you two are doing just fine. Cynthia immediately fired back. What do you mean? Jason treats me well because of our daughter. Lately, your husband's been working nonstop, running between the company, the hospital, and Amber's place. He hasn't had a moment's rest. I said nothing. Soon after, Frank called. Helen, what are you doing? Cynthia and I are clean. Delete that comment. My temples throbbed as memories resurfaced. Years of rumors about Frank. He was handsome, a classic rugged American with a fit physique that never seemed to age. That's what attracted me to him. But after marriage, whispers spread. Sightings of him traveling with other women, speaking intimately. At home, though, he played the devoted husband, doing household chores and rarely staying out late, so I never gave the rumors much weight. But on the night Jason got engaged, I overheard relatives whispering in the next room. Frank's been having an affair with Cynthia for years. After losing interest, he introduced Cynthia's daughter to his son to keep her close. My God, he's disgusting. Someone hushed the conversation. Keep it down. Don't let Helen hear. But the words cut deep and lodged in my heart. Suddenly, all the things I had refused to admit snapped into place. My instincts told me those rumors were no baseless gossip. On the 8th day of my trip, Frank's assistant called, asking when I'd be back. I lazily replied, "I'll return when I feel like it." Not long after, Jason called, shouting immediately, "Mom, it's been 8 days. How much longer will you stay? Had enough fun?" The baby cried every single day, and Amber and Cynthia just couldn't handle taking care of him. The nanny's cooking was terrible. "I've begged you. Come home now," Frank pleaded over the phone. Without a second thought, I hung up. On the 10th day, Frank called again, his voice unnervingly calm, as if discussing a routine business matter. "Helen, do you even care about our marriage anymore?" Without hesitation, I fired back, "When did you and Cynthia start?" There was a brief pause on the other end before he exploded, "Have you lost your mind? You're just stirring up trouble." I didn't push further. I already knew the truth. Trying to rein in his fury, he rattled off his so-called conditions for salvaging our marriage. "If you want to stay married, here's what you need to do. First, take care of my daily needs. Meals, living arrangements, no complaints. Second, don't expect any affection from me except at social events. Stay out of my way at home, unless I call for you. Third, watch your words and actions carefully. Don't expect kindness or gentleness. When I want something, you act immediately. Fourth, don't do anything in front of others, especially Amber, that could damage my reputation." When he finished, he looked down at me as if offering a lifeline, assuming I was still the submissive housewife who'd never dream of leaving him. He was wrong. I wasn't that woman anymore. Meanwhile, I spent my days traveling, reconnecting with old friends, and meeting with one of the city's top divorce attorneys. On the 20th day of my trip, I got a call from Tina, Frank's sister. "Helen, when are you coming back? Mom's been making a scene every day, yelling at night, refusing to eat. We're all losing our minds." They'd only been looking after her for a little over 20 days, and they were already at their breaking point. But I'd cared for her for 10 years. They always treated it like my obligation, as if I had nothing better to do and should just spend my time meaningfully. I replied bluntly, "Tina, your mom is your responsibility, not mine. Doesn't your brother always say Cynthia is perfect for him? Why doesn't he let her care for your mom?" To my surprise, Tina didn't argue. Instead, she went straight to Frank. The siblings fought bitterly over Cynthia. Later, she called me again, her tone completely changed. "Helen, I'm sorry for what I said earlier. Frank's a bastard. He yelled at me over that woman, even threatened to hit me. He said, 'You're just the servant we hired to run the house, and that woman is the princess he's spoiling. If you don't come back soon, he'll really divorce you.' Helen, don't go back. Let him see the real face of that woman." Her words caught me off guard. Tina had never been kind to me, always nitpicking. But whatever her reasons, I appreciated the support as long as she didn't cause more trouble. On the 30th day of my trip, just as I was preparing to board my flight home, Frank's assistant called. "Mrs. Dawson, Mr. Dawson asked me to inform you, if you don't return within 2 days, you will receive a formal divorce notice from his attorney." I responded calmly, "Perfect. My lawyer's already sent his. Tell him to check his mailbox." When the plane landed, I didn't go back to Frank's mansion. Instead, I headed straight to the old house my parents had left me. Compared to that sprawling estate with thousands of square feet, this place was modest, smaller, quieter. But it was mine. Every inch belonged to me and no one else. After Frank's career took off, our marriage slowly crumbled into little more than shared responsibilities toward the child and extended family. Every argument ended with him sneering, "This house is mine. If you don't like it, leave." Once he even said, "Even a dog would earn some affection after 20 years. You're not even worth that." I used to tell myself those were just angry words, but now I understood. They were exactly what he meant. This house, an early investment from my parents, had always been my fallback. I'd made small renovations over the years, hoping they might live here in their later years. Now it was my sanctuary. I spent 2 days setting it up, furnishing it just how I liked. Exhausted, I'd fall asleep the moment my head hit the pillow, waking at 5 each morning to jog in the park. That freedom, the quiet, the control, was a kind of happiness I'd never imagined possible. I even went to a dealership to buy myself a car. But just as I was about to swipe my card, the salesperson looked hesitant. I'm sorry, ma'am. It appears your account has been frozen. I froze, stunned. Seconds later, my phone rang. It was Frank. Helen, he said smugly, 20 years. I've spoiled you way too much. You want a divorce? Fine. Let me show you what life after divorce really looks like. His voice dripped with spite, sending a chill down my spine. 20 years of domestic life had dulled my edges, numbed my instincts. But now I was wide awake. I called my best friend Susan and asked her to wire me $50,000 just in case. She was furious on the other end. Men, all of them turn into bastards once they get money. They forget who stood by them when they had nothing. I knew something was off when Jason got married. Frank was practically tripping over himself to please Cynthia. I knew he was up to no good. And now we know they've been sneaking around all along. Frank just assumed you'd never leave him. That even if you found out, you'd stay and play dumb. I sighed. I guess I was too weak for too long. Susan softened her tone. Honey, don't blame yourself. I've already set up a meeting with the best divorce attorney in town. Don't worry about money. I've got it covered. Just focus on yourself. I told my parents everything. They didn't scold me or ask why I hadn't left sooner. My father simply said, don't be afraid. If you've made up your mind, don't look back. Just keep moving forward. That day, I went to visit Frank's mother, Diana, at the hospital. As I turned down the hallway near her room, I saw Frank and Cynthia walking out together. Frank, your mom's mattress is too firm. It's causing pressure sores, Cynthia said, pulling off her gloves. I treated them a bit, but you really need to tell the caregiver to be more attentive. She's too old to suffer like this. Frank looked touched, gently holding her wrist. You've been amazing, really. If Helen doesn't come back soon, I'll make sure she sees everything you've done. Cynthia smiled softly. Helen hasn't had it easy either. I've already told Amber not to be too hard on her. Frank's face instantly hardened. Don't mention her to me, I overheard Frank say. Only you and Amber have the heart to be kind. Everyone else would have given up on her long ago. She's spoiled because I pampered her too much. I stood just around the corner, feeling a cold dread spreading deeper with every word. Then, as if nothing had happened, Frank continued casually. Anyway, let's not dwell on unpleasant topics. Here's a check for $20,000. Pick something nice for Amber and yourself. You've been working hard lately. I almost laughed out loud. So that's how he truly valued us. I'd cared for him, our son, and his mother for years. He gave me a mere $3,000 a month for spending money, while still expecting me to run errands for his aging mother. Meanwhile, Cynthia spent 15 minutes in a hospital room and walked away with 20 grand. Whenever I wanted to buy something for myself, he accused me of wastefulness. I didn't go inside. Instead, I turned and went straight home. On the way, I called Susan and asked her to help me find some secondhand furniture and luxury consignment services. It was time to clear out everything in that house that belonged to me. By the time I got home, Susan was already waiting. She spotted the boxes in my hands and asked, You're really doing this? Selling everything? I nodded firmly. Out with the old, in with the new. All these years, everything I saved and worked for was spent on people who never truly cared for me. Frank cared more about appearances than anything else. He used to say he fell in love with me at first sight because I was attractive. Even after I became a housewife, I never stopped taking care of myself. I stayed in shape, kept my appearance polished. Whenever he needed a trophy wife, I'd wear the dresses he chose and carry the handbags he bought. But none of it was really for me. It was all a show, an illusion of a perfect, happy family. Now those so-called treasures were just clearance items in my hands. It took me 2 days to sell everything I could. As soon as the money landed in my account, I transferred it all to Susan. Then I sent Frank a short message. I'm back. Less than 30 minutes later, he arrived at the house. The moment he stepped inside and saw the empty rooms, he froze. Where's everything? I met his gaze calmly. Sold. You've lost your mind, he snapped, eyes blazing. Barefoot, I walked across the floor, my voice light and steady. Crazy? I just thought it was time for a little remodeling. This house was decorated 5 years ago exactly how you wanted it. The only parts of this whole place that were ever really mine were the kitchen and the downstairs bedroom. Frank clenched his jaw. So, this is what you came back with? Such a foolish decision. You never intended to stay in this marriage, did you? I held his stare, unshaken. I poured myself into this family for years. And for what? You never respected me. You even froze my bank account. But that's fine. I assume you've received the court summons by now. At that moment, his assistant peeked in awkwardly. Sir, the divorce papers from the court were just delivered, Frank growled, his jaw tight with rage. I supported you for over 20 years, and now you have the nerve to file for divorce. I want to see which lawyer in this city dares take your case. Outside on the balcony, the table and chairs still stood. I calmly picked up my coffee and sat down. My tone was composed, like negotiating a business deal. Frank, I spent over 2 decades caring for you and our son, and another 10 years looking after your mother. I managed every petty, thankless task in this household. You don't have to acknowledge it, but that doesn't mean it amounts to nothing. So this house and that $150,000 SUV in your name, they belong to me. I stood by you from scratch, helped you host clients, manage social events, and handled every detail of your life outside the office. You wouldn't have the success you have today without me. I deserve at least half the credit. I've already hired a professional asset evaluator. Your company's market value is estimated around $120 million. I don't want shares. I want $2.5 million in compensation. Frank's face flushed a deep, furious red. You're out of your mind. You've lost it completely. He turned sharply and barked at his assistant. Get me a psychiatrist. Fast. She needs a mental health evaluation. I didn't flinch. His outbursts weren't new. He'd been volatile for years. I used to excuse it. Not anymore. I looked him straight in the eyes and asked sharply, when did you and Cynthia really start? Frank's eyes flickered before he snapped, You're disgusting. I'm only helping Cynthia for Amber's sake. And what about your son? Don't you care about hurting Jason with this divorce? I stared him down. I don't care anymore. From now on, I only care about myself. Frank still naively believed this was just another emotional flare-up, that if he waited a few days, I'd calm down and cave like always. But divorce reveals true character, and I had seen enough. When I heard he was spreading rumors about having me institutionalized, I knew I couldn't take any chances. I was genuinely afraid he might try to silence me that way. So the next day, I officially moved back into my house and installed a full smart home surveillance system. I told my brother Mike, if you don't hear from me for 24 hours, call the police immediately. Once husband and wife, now I had to think like a survivor. The court hearing was set for 2 months later. I told Frank clearly that if he accepted reality and agreed to my terms, we could part with dignity. He didn't respond. Jason was the first to strike back. He stormed over to my mother's place, throwing a tantrum. Grandma, how does she even have the nerve to come back? Amber just had a baby and she went on vacation for a month. She didn't even visit. And now she wants to divorce Dad? Wants to take $2 million? Everything in that house is because of Dad's hard work. She spends his money every month and now wants part of his assets. What else does she know besides cooking and laundry? She's nothing but a glorified maid. She contributes nothing. And now she's hiding from me. Tell her I won't let her take a single dime from our family. If she crawls back and resumes her duties, maybe I'll give her a small allowance. Before he could finish, Mike stepped in and knocked him to the ground. You ungrateful little bastard, Mike roared. How dare you insult your mother after everything she's done for you? My 6-foot-tall son stumbled, caught off guard, hitting the floor. He tried to put on a tough face but didn't dare fight back. She chose that life, Mike said firmly. I never forced her, Jason muttered defiantly. Bullshit, Mike snapped, his anger boiling over. Listen carefully. This family only cares about you because of your mother. Without her, you're nothing, not worth a damn. Now get the hell out. Jason scrambled to his feet, his face red with humiliation. As he reached the door, he spotted me standing there. His expression shifted instantly, from arrogance to pitiful theatrics. Mom, Uncle, hit me, he begged. Mike's voice was harsh. He should have hit you harder. Jason stared at me, clearly baffled by my words, until another slap cracked across his cheek. This time, I put every ounce of strength I had into it. He staggered back, stunned, clutching his face. Mom, you actually hit me? I looked him straight in the eye, voice cold and steady. That's what you owed me. And from this day forward, I'm cutting all ties with you. I am no longer your mother. Jason's face twisted with fury. He pointed a trembling finger. Fine, you'll regret this. He probably thought my regret would come when Frank agreed to the divorce, but he had no idea. I had never feared this moment, not for a second. Outside the courthouse, Frank watched me, his expression conflicted. Helen, how did we get here? If you felt the allowance I gave you wasn't enough, I can increase it. If housework tires you, we'll hire help. You can use my driver anytime. I said nothing, just gave him a mocking smile. His brows furrowed. Are you really determined to leave? I met his gaze, voice quiet but sharp. Did you and Cynthia meet 5 years ago? His eyes flickered for a moment. I turned and climbed the courthouse steps. Behind me, he tried again. Fine. Yes, we met 5 years ago, but nothing improper happened. You don't trust me? Can't you at least trust Amber's father? Men never tell the whole truth, and I knew exactly who held the power in Cynthia's family. Her father was a mild-mannered, indecisive man, someone who'd rather pretend deafness than face reality. The divorce process was surprisingly smooth, almost suspiciously so, but I wasn't about to question a clean break. As I left the courthouse and approached a waiting taxi, Jason jumped out of Frank's car, his voice dripping with contempt. Wow, Mom, you really did it. A housewife divorcing a man like Dad. Let's see how long you last on your own. Shut your mouth, Frank snapped, voice louder and angrier than I'd ever heard. Jason froze, stunned, staring at his father like he was seeing him for the first time. Frank approached me quietly. Let me give you a ride home. I shook my head. No need. Goodbye, Frank. The cab pulled away slowly. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing there watching me go. Maybe regret was in his eyes, but it didn't matter anymore. When I got home, my parents were waiting with a hot meal, ready to celebrate. It was the first time in my life I had ever celebrated a divorce, and I'd never felt so light, so free. At dinner, Mike suddenly grinned. Helen, I have a favor to ask. I looked at him. Go ahead. He smiled wider. Can you take Mom and Dad on a trip? It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, but Rachel and I are always too busy to make it happen. Of course, I knew they weren't just fulfilling a wish. They were helping me heal, giving me fresh perspective and a change of scenery. I appreciated that more than they knew. I nodded. Absolutely. The very next day, Mike booked our trip to Napa Valley, a place my parents had always dreamed of visiting but never could. Rolling vineyards, a quiet luxury resort with natural hot springs, gourmet food and wine, and a slow, peaceful rhythm of life. It was exactly what we needed. Before we left, Mike slipped a check for $120,000 into my hand. This is for their travel expenses, he said softly. Thanks for taking care of them during the trip. I've arranged hotels and transport. You just relax and enjoy. A warmth spread through my chest. I almost teared up. Over the years, I'd poured everything into my marriage, my son, and that house, often neglecting my own parents, yet they never complained. Now I had the chance to give back and simply enjoy life together. I only told Susan about the trip. She came to the airport to see us off, hugging me tightly. When you get back, we're opening that studio we talked about. You'll be my business partner. Napa Valley was breathtaking. Each vineyard looked like a painting. My parents glowed with happiness. For the first time in years, I felt truly free, sipping wine in the afternoon sun, reading under olive trees, taking photos, laughing without guilt. Time belonged to me again. A month later, out of the blue, Amber sent me a message. Her tone was unusually soft. Helen, can I ask you something? What's going on between Frank and Mom? Really? I replied coldly. Ask your mother or Frank. Don't ask me. She sent another message. Jason knows he was wrong. His appetite's been terrible lately. He only wants the food you used to make, but he's too proud to say so. Would you come back for his sake? No, I typed without hesitation. I've already cut ties. He's no longer my son. After a pause, a voice message popped up. It was Jason, furious. Fine, don't come back. Nobody needs you anyway. I chuckled and set the phone down. That was the real him. A few days later, my phone rang again. It was Frank's sister, Tina. The moment I answered, I heard her sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. I feared something terrible. Maybe their mother had passed. But Tina told me she was still alive. Though she and Frank were near breaking point, her dementia symptoms worsened, soiling herself, wandering, shouting at night. It had become a constant struggle. She sent me a photo of Frank. He looked exhausted, haggard, completely different from the last time I'd seen him. Helen, Tina said through tears, my brother admits he's at fault. He asked me to apologize for him. You've always been the backbone of this family. Without you, everything would have fallen apart. Please come back. We need you. I looked out at the distant hills, voice calm but firm. I cared for you all for 10 years. You've only been watching your mom for a few days and already can't handle it. Did anyone ever consider how I felt? This company was built by me and your brother. He's been giving me $3,000 a month for expenses, yet your whole family claims he's supporting me. When Cynthia visited your mom in the hospital, Frank gave her a check for $20,000. Do you know how much Frank has spent on other women over the years? You can ask anyone else, but don't come to me. For Frank's sake, I had never spoken about the years of pain I endured. But now I realized that if I stayed silent, no one would ever understand just how much I sacrificed for this marriage. Even after the divorce, I had to make them see it. The least they owed me was some guilt. I ended the call right then. That summer, Mike's family got some time off and decided to join us on vacation. We went hiking through the mountains, soaking up the warm sunshine and the peaceful nature all around us. Meanwhile, Frank and Jason's lives had descended into chaos. Cynthia moved into Jason's luxury apartment, spending her days at the spa or shopping, completely ignoring the household. Amber asked her for help with the kids, but Cynthia always complained she felt unwell and refused to assist. When asked to buy anything, she claimed she didn't have the money. Jason, helpless, hired a nanny, but Cynthia found fault with everything. She griped that the nanny's salary was too high and complained the nanny ate more than she did, watching her like a thief. The most ridiculous incident happened when Jason's baby turned 3 months old. Without thinking, Cynthia gave the baby egg yolk. When Jason found out, he was furious. The baby had an allergic reaction and had to be hospitalized. When the doctor asked about the incident, Cynthia blamed the nanny, accusing her of not watching the child carefully enough. The nanny, outraged, quit on the spot. Jason and Amber had a huge argument. Amber defended her mother, but Jason had had enough. He threatened that Cynthia would never set foot in their house again. If anything happens to the baby, I'll go after your mother. Cynthia ran crying to Frank, but he turned and scolded Jason. Then, incredibly, Cynthia and her husband moved into my house. Her husband, though occasionally acting like a man, at least came home for meals and could cook. But Cynthia didn't care about the house. She ignored everything. Frank suffered severe stomach issues, but Cynthia, who couldn't live without spicy food, tossed his stomach medicine aside like trash. Frank tolerated it until one day he had to leave on a business trip, and Tina was busy with something else, leaving her mother in Cynthia's care for 2 days. Frank's mother, who had dementia and was paralyzed, couldn't care for herself. On the first day, Cynthia called a caregiver when her mother-in-law had an accident in bed. She refused to clean it up herself. On the second day, Cynthia spent all her time glued to her phone, completely neglecting Frank's mother. The poor woman tried to get out of bed on her own but fell and couldn't move, screaming in pain. Neighbors noticed and alerted social services. When Frank found out, he rushed home, but Cynthia deflected blame, saying she hadn't expected his mother to move suddenly. She even told Frank, "I've never cared for a sick person before. I have no experience. I couldn't take care of her." When Frank told me this, I didn't react. For the first time in over 20 years, Frank had put aside his pride and apologized. "Helen, I know I've made mistakes. Please forgive me. Can you come back?" At that moment, Jason, sobbing uncontrollably, said, "Mom, I'm sorry. I realize now without you, this family can't function." My parents sat beside me, worried I might jump out of the frying pan into the fire. But my mind was clear. "You don't want me back. You want your maid. If I return, it'll only take 2 months before everything's back to how it was." Frank and Jason claimed they'd changed, but I didn't believe them. One was in his 20s, the other in his 50s. It was time to wean them off their dependence. I suggested they hire a professional housekeeper. They did. Without Cynthia's interference, the nanny took excellent care of my grandson, but Amber and Jason grew distant. The smallest disagreements spiraled into fights. Frank decided to ask Cynthia to move out. He began remodeling the house completely to suit my preferences. Helen, he said, I was blind before. The money I gave Cynthia, I'm taking it back. From now on, you manage the household finances. I've unfrozen your accounts and wired you $1 million. Spend it however you like. I remained unmoved. Mike nudged me, half joking, half serious. Helen, don't go soft now. I had given 20 years of my life to that household. Whatever time remained, I'd make it mine. Bold, vivid, and uncompromising. Once burned, twice shy. I had no intention of jumping back into that fire. My parents saw my resolve and finally felt at ease. Our time away had been beautiful, but it was time to return home. Frank and Jason somehow learned our flight details. They appeared at the airport dressed in suits, holding bouquets, trying to put on their best act. Jason ran to me, tears in his eyes, hugging me tightly. Mom, I'm sorry. I really mean it this time. You did everything for me, and I just took it for granted. Frank followed quietly. If you've come home, then come home for real. From now on, you make the rules. I accepted the flowers but didn't go with them. Jason, confused, asked, Mom? We've both apologized. It's been over 6 months since this started. How long do you plan to drag this out? And there it was, the mask slipping off. That was the real him. Thankfully, I never pinned my hopes on their apologies. I tossed the flowers into the trash and led my parents toward Susan's car. Mike turned to Jason. You idiot! If you really understood what you did wrong, you wouldn't talk to your mom like that. And you? Thinking she'll just come back to cook and clean for you again? Dream on. Don't forget we only tolerated you both because of Helen. Frank and Jason didn't get what they wanted. Later, I heard they both lost their tempers on the ride home. Not long after, Cynthia showed up at Jason's place. She helped herself to Amber's designer dresses and outfits. You just had a baby, she told Amber. Your figure's not back yet. What's the point of keeping these? I'll put them to better use. Besides, Jason has money. If you want more, just buy new ones. Jason walked in while she was still packing Amber's things. Furious, he kicked both Amber and Cynthia out. Cynthia ran crying to Frank for help. He ignored her. Even Amber tried to talk to him, but Frank wouldn't see her either. Ultimately, Frank recovered every penny, the entire $500,000 he'd handed over to Cynthia, because that's just how men like him operate. While I tightened my belt and stretched every dime at home, he tossed cash around on other women without a second thought. Yet, Frank seemed to think this was some grand gesture. Helen, he said, I kept my promise. I was blind before. These months apart showed me that you're the one holding this family together. Please come back. I met his gaze without flinching. I gave you my best years. The rest of my life I'm investing in myself. I've already decided to walk away. That door is closed. You can ask 1,000 times. My answer will never change. On New Year's Day, Susan and I officially opened our studio. That night, we relaxed in the garden, champagne in hand, soft music drifting around us, fireworks bursting over the city skyline. Raising her glass, Susan smiled warmly. Congrats on rediscovering yourself. May the rest of your days belong solely to you. I clinked my glass quietly, smiling to myself. Thanks to Susan's network, the studio grew steadily, and we landed our first clients swiftly. Meanwhile, Jason and Amber patched things up. They came to an agreement. Amber was free to visit her family, but beyond that, no one else would interfere in their home again. Without my care, Frank's mother passed just before spring arrived. Perhaps at last she found peace, I thought. Frank's remorse was quiet but real. If we hadn't split, he confessed once, maybe Mom would have lived longer. He did manage to reclaim every dollar he'd given Cynthia. Amber even returned every gift Frank had ever given to Cynthia's mother. As for Cynthia, there was no spectacular downfall, but she did fall seriously ill. Once her family learned the truth, they slowly stopped inviting her to holidays and family events. Her husband grew colder and more distant, gradually pulling away what little affection remained. No scandal, no explosions, just a slow, crushing isolation. One day, Frank's assistant filled me in while Jason prepared dinner in the backyard, cradling his child. I just smiled quietly. Frank kept asking if I would remarry him. I gave the same answer I always have. Not in this lifetime. I would never again wear the chains of marriage for anyone. From now on, I was simply myself. No one's wife, no one's mother. A woman who had finally found her own home within herself and could finally breathe freely.